Hello, welcome to lesson 3C. I can identify congruent figures and write congruence statements. Well, two figures are considered congruent, and we all know that symbol. That did not mean to have, hello. We all know this symbol here. If they have the exact same shape and size. Their orientation does not matter. So that means if I've got two figures and we rotate them or flip them, as long as their shape and size are the same, they're still considered congruent. So for example, here you can see I've got this triangle DEF and I've moved it around in different ways, but DE is still congruent to DE is still congruent to DE. Its orientation does not matter. When we look at two triangles, there are actually 7 congruent statements we're able to write about the triangles. The first thing we can look at are the angles, right? And there are 3 congruence relationships, and we match them by their markings. So angle A must be congruent to the angle over here that has 3 markings, which in this case is angle X. And angle B has 2 markings, so it must be congruent to angle S, because it also has 2 markings. And angle C has 1 loop, so it must be congruent to angle G. So those are all the statements I can write about my angles. Then we can also write statements about the sides of the triangle. And if I look at segment AB, and again I put the segment symbol over it because we're going to talk about congruency, not length, AB is congruent to segment SX. Now the order in which I write these letters matter. A started at A and went towards B, so that goes from 3 loops to 2 loops, so I better write 3 loops than 2 loops on this guy. 3 loops to 2 loops here is X then S. Order matters. Then we have segment BC. BC is congruent to, well, B was 2 loops, C was 1 loop. So that would be S and G, so I go 2 loops, which is S, 1 loop, which is G. Order matters. That's the one with 3 markings on it, right? And then finally, we have segment AC. And segment AC has 2 markings on it, right here. Well, when I look at that, GX also has 2 markings, but I need to pay attention to the order in which I list my points. I'm going to have to list them XG, because if we list AC, that goes 3 loops, 1 loop, so we need to do 3 loops, 1 loop, X to G. And then my final congruent statement is actually the whole triangle. And when I list the triangle, if we say triangle ABC would be congruent to, again, order matters. ABC went, A is 3 loops, B 2 loops, C 1 loop. So I'm going to list them in the same order. 3 loops, I put the triangle symbol, is X. 2 loops is S. 1 loop is G. So that's my triangle congruent statement. So because all corresponding sides are congruent and all corresponding angles are congruent, we can write a final congruent statement. Which I think we've already done, but we'll fill in the notes, that show that 2 triangles themselves are congruent. So we wrote up above, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle XSG. 2 shapes are not considered congruent unless if every side and every angle are congruent. And the order in which we list their corresponding congruent parts matters. Corresponding parts must be listed in the same order on both congruent statements. Well, that's it, guys, for lesson 3C. Take a look at the MML assignment and the knowledge check. Thank you.